going to go ahead and start my recording, and we will get into our presentation for today. So we're going to talk about security basics, and there is a lot of ground to cover. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. Now, this presentation is going to cover these topics. It's a really high-level overview of the areas listed here, and if you think you need specific help, I want you to reach out to Sherry or me to schedule some one-on-one time. And also, if you'd like to ask questions, it's just the three of us here today. I want you to raise your hand, or take yourself off mute, or raise your hand or send me a chat. Let me take you off mute so that you can ask questions. If you want to just stop and say, hey, I don't understand, I want to take some time to help you understand. So either during this presentation, after this presentation, or an email or a text. So just know that we are here to support you however you need it. So I want us to be very informal in this session. So we're going to be talking about these topics today. And when we get started, as we move through this, we're going to be looking a lot in this screen. And you access this screen by going to Administration and Security. Okay? And to be able to access everything that we're going to see today, you're going to need to assume the admin role. Now let's talk a little bit about assuming the admin role, okay? If you are, the person who runs your PowerSchool special programs, when you log in as yourself, you are most likely logged in as the system administrator. There is another way to log in, like I just referenced, to access the admin role. And then there is another way to be the admin of PowerSchool, and that is to log in the back door. Now, let's talk about these two options that we see on the screen. I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about the admin role in a second, but let's just talk about these two. So the system administrator versus the admin role. So as a system administrator, you can do pretty much anything you want to in PowerSchool special programs. When I was a director, and if y'all don't know much about me, I am fresh from the district level. I came to the department on January 2nd to begin work, and prior to that, I was a district administrator covering special education, 504. I helped with counselors, EL, district testing coordinator, and before that I was a school counselor, and before that I was a special ed teacher. So that's my background, but just so you know, it's not been long since I was in the district level. Working in a small district, and in a small district you wear lots of hats. So juggling a lot of things, and I understand how hectic it gets. But as a system administrator of special programs, I rarely, at the district level, assumed that admin role because I didn't need it very often. Pretty much everything I needed to do, I could do as the system administrator because I could access everything. I could do things that I needed to do with staff. I could do anything with documents for the most part. Sometimes, especially like during reporting time or when I needed to work with security or document templates, I would need to assume that admin role, but that was not very often. So as the admin, the difference between administrator and admin, as the admin, you can monitor and alter the data flow between documents, profiles, and the SIS. You can control and alter the way the data is immigrated and migrated. You can control security features for users and documents. And you also have to have that additional password, okay? Now, if you think about altering data flow and how it integrates with SIS and all of that, that's pretty powerful and that's pretty scary, in my opinion, about who has access to that, and not only that, but who has access, but being able to know who makes those changes, okay? So just keep that little tidbit in mind as we move through. So that's the big difference. The system admin can do a lot of things, but they cannot monitor and alter the data flow. They cannot control how documents work. They cannot control the security all the way down, all the way up. So keep that in mind. All right, so now let's talk about logging in to special programs. Now, I did say we needed to assume the admin role, and the reason I said that is because when you are logging into special programs, the best practice and the way we should be doing it is through our PowerSchool CS. So this screenshot here at the very top of the page is what our CS looks like, and you can see right here, because of my little icon, you can see I'm logged in as me, Samantha Russell, here, SR. And if I want to go into special programs, I would click this icon, and then it would give me a flyout menu as referenced in this other screenshot, and I would be able to click Special Programs Home, and it would open up my Special Programs homepage. Again, you see it is Samantha Russell logged in with my initials here, and if I needed to assume that admin role, I would go to the administration icon at the top and drop down, and as me, as the administrator in my security settings, I have the right to assume the system admin role. Now, if a teacher were to log in and go to that administration button, she's not going to have that assumed system admin role because she doesn't have rights to do that. But when I do, as the administrator of the special programs, I do have rights. So I went to administration, and I would go here and assume that system admin role. And this is the preferred way to use the admin login. So in special programs, administration, assume admin role. When you click that, it's going to come up with a box, and it's going to ask you why you are signing in as the system admin. And here you can see that I have put security, and I've put in my password. And when I click that, I'm clicking sign in, and then I would be in as the admin. Now, logging in this way is what I call the back door. And this is actually the same password, the admin username and password that I would put in to assume this role. And I have the same permissions, whether I log in this way or whether I log in this way. I have the exact same permissions. There is really no reason that districts should be using this web address to log into special programs, because each district had one admin login. They didn't have a login that differentiated between users. And so when you use this ALSpecialEducation.PowerSchool.com web address to log in to your instance of special programs, there is no way to denote or differentiate who is actually doing the logging in. Okay? I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. This particular way of logging in, this backdoor way, was created, or we used it when we were first implementing special programs in PowerSchool CS in 2021, when we were before they were actually connected through the state, when we were just going through our setup and implementation, beginning implementation. We were working with those PowerSchool people to set our properties and our security settings and all of that, doing all the mapping. When you met with, if you were doing this then, like I met with my implementation specialist, and we talked through all kinds of things. And this is how we had to log in, because there was not a bridge between PowerSchool Special Programs and CS at that time. So that's why we have this, but we should not be using this login. Let me show you why. Okay? I've worked with some districts since being at the department to troubleshoot some issues, and this is what I found. If you notice on the left side of the page, This is when I have logged, or when someone was logged in as the security administrator using that admin, I call it the super admin role, okay? They logged in the back door, and they're logged in as admin. And you can see in the events log, remember this is where we keep up with what's being done in our instance of special programs. You can see that a user accessed a document, a user accessed another document, and then they accessed another document. And up at the top, you can see that a different user, but you could identify them with their user number, that they did that document, okay? On the right side is when I logged in and I assumed the admin role and did some things. At the bottom of the right side, you can see these boxes are outlined in blue. That is when I am logged into special programs as me, and I am working with those documents. So there is no doubt that on 2/19/25 at 12:39 p.m., Samantha Russell, with her user ID, accessed a notice and eligibility decision document. No doubt, because it's logged there. And even when I went on to assume the admin role, you can see that I was logged in. Look at those green boxes. I was logged in as the admin, but who does it identify? Me. Admin, Samantha Russell, as the system admin role. And that is exactly why we should not be using the back door. The left side, whoever in your district has that admin password, when they log in with the back door, that's how they're going to, anything that they do, that's how they're going to be tracked. So it's important to make sure we are logging in, using best practices to log in order to keep our data safe, to make sure we are doing what we need to do. Okay? So let's talk about how to figure out who has access to specific privileges. Okay? Now, this is the original screen we saw, and remember, these are the things that we're going to talk about today, some of them. Right now, we're going to talk about filtering groups by privilege. And since I was just talking about assuming that system admin role, let's filter and see who has rights to that page. So if you were to filter your groups by privilege, that's shown in this red box, you will get a little box like this in this pop-out, and you would be looking in the system admin privileges, because it is a system admin privilege, and the privilege would be assume that system admin role. So what you're looking for is a person who would have this right here where the red arrow is pointing. You're going to be looking for the person that has the right to do it, okay? And when you click OK, it's going to show you that the district admin, and then this one, the special programs, and the special programs admin group down here. These are the three groups that have rights to assume that system admin role. But just because they have the right, just because they can, doesn't mean they have to have the password or that they should be. Honestly, you and maybe your tech coordinator should be, the district special ed coordinator and the tech coordinator probably are the only two people that really need that admin role. Now, I recognize that I worked in a small district, so my circle of who needed that access would be very small, and it may be in a larger district you need more than one person, but honestly, if you think about what that system admin role means, it means that you can change a lot of things in the back side of your program. You can really mess some things up, especially people who don't know what they're doing. So be very, very mindful as you are giving out that admin password on who really needs it. Because as me, as a coordinator, I'm the one that's getting the training to know how to do the document privileges. I'm the one that's going to have to configure those rights and I would not want someone else going in there and doing it. So just be mindful as you determine who needs rights for what. Okay? So the next thing we're going to talk about are the security groups. So going back to our initial page up here, we're going to talk, we talked about filtering groups by privilege, and now we're going to talk about staff security groups. Okay? So we need security groups, but why? Well, we need them so we can control user access. You don't want to give someone access to something they don't need. And so these, by using different groups, it allows us to give users access to only the things and the information they need. For example, you don't need a teacher at the elementary school being able to look up a student at the high school and know what their IEP says. You don't need a teacher to be able to have access to security privileges. I mean, there are a lot of things that we have to make sure that we have people in the right groups for. Okay. So the next thing is we're going to look at these security groups. And if you are logged in as the admin role, you're going to see these security groups. Now, you can expand the group with the drop-down arrows to the right of the group name, and we often call that a caret. And when you click on that caret, it will expand these groups. And so, like today, we're mostly going to be working on the special education security group. So if I were to click there, and I probably should have put another screenshot there, if I were to click there, I would see special education viewer, and special education teacher, and special education administrator. So there would be some options there. And this is, when you click that special education security group for teacher, you're going to see screens that look like this, okay? And if you notice, at the top of the page, you're going to see 3 tabs: properties and privileges, members, and then document templates. And these denote the different sections within that group. And the first tab we're going to talk about today is properties and privileges. So when you click here, you're going to see this screen. Okay? It doesn't have this little box. That's just another screenshot. When you access the properties and privileges for the special education teacher, you're going to see this page. And these are all the privileges that a special education teacher has been granted. Okay? And you can see here, granted has a plus and denied has a minus. So let's think about this. When we are granting and denying, or we're giving permission to someone, we are granting. And we have to choose whether we're granting system-wide or location-wide. And most of the time, we leave it at NA. So if I were to go to the top of this page and click Edit, I would have a lot more things out there. But for each one of these little privileges, I would have this box where I could grant system-wide, location-wide. I could leave it neither granted nor denied, and then I could choose denied system-wide or denied location-wide. I want to caution you about using deny, because what that means is you can't have it. And when you, and this came from Power School, when you deny privileges or access, that means even if you grant it in another area, it will not override that deny. So honestly, I would not use deny. I would just leave it at NA, and that's not going to grant them that privilege in this area. If that's confusing to you, you can reach out to Sherry or me, and we'll help you work through it. Sometimes it's trial and error. Hey, if I give them this, how does that affect them? And then you can go in and sign in as that teacher and help figure out what they can and cannot see. Okay? On the next few slides is a list of the properties and privileges that you will see under this heading, properties and privileges, okay? I have included these slides not really to go over with you, but for you to use as reference. Each one of these privileges, you may think, oh, access my classes, what does that mean? Or access my future classes, what does that mean? Or view sensitive fields, what does that mean? Well, these next slides are going to explain that to you. And they tell you a brief description of what each one of those privileges means. So I'm not going to read them to you. That's too much information, and it's the end of the day and we're tired. So I have them here for your reference. I do have access to another document that lists every one of them because this is not exhaustive as far as this list. But I don't have it in, I only have a hard copy of it, and so, but if you need it, I can scan it and send it to you. Just let me know. But this is a list of properties and privileges that are available that you could assign if you wanted to. Okay? Now, let's go back to one more thing. Now, I told you that we mostly, this is a special education teacher. You can see this right here. It's for special education teachers. And most of them are location-wide because really you don't want your teacher at the elementary school to be able to see students at the high school. But you do want to keep the staff as system-wide, and let me tell you why. If you are, on some of those forms, there's a place for the local education agency representative, and they need to be able to put your district personnel name. Well, if you have it locked down to location-wide, then you're not going to be available because you work at the district to be able to put that there. Or maybe it's a middle school teacher that's holding a meeting and it's for a student that will be transitioning to the high school, so the high school principal was the LEA for their meeting. If you don't have that set to system-wide, then they will not be able to put their name on the signature line on the IEP or whatever document you're using. Okay, so just keep that in mind when you are assigning privileges based on location or system. Okay? Now moving on, the next tab that we want to talk about is members. Now, I put this top screenshot in there because when we are talking about members for each of these security groups, the membership is assigned for most of the security groups based on what is in the PowerSchool SIS portion. And it is on the SIS user access role. And so the first time a user accesses PowerSchool using a single sign-on, it's going to populate this security group. And what that means is when a person, an employee, is put in SIS, that person who puts them in SIS assigns them a user role. And based on that, it talks to special programs and assigns their permissions. And that helps you as the coordinator because you're not having to remember, oh, Julie at that little school over there was fired this year, and she's not here. I need to take her permissions away because that district person's going to know what personnel is retained and which have moved on, and they're going to revoke their rights in SIS. And so once they are made inactive and removed permissions in SIS, it will come over into special programs. The thing is sometimes we think we can just click this members button and add or remove members. Well, the thing about it, we can, and it'll let us. But because this right here, SIS user access role, is mapped to special education teacher, that it'll fix it for just a second. But the next time it talks, the two platforms talk, then it will overwrite what you've done. So you cannot alter if it's got a PSSP user access role right here, it's going to override anything you do manually. This is what I'm talking about. So this is a SIS view. This is the staff profile in SIS. If you don't have access, this is what it looks like. And in the staff profile, if you go out here to admin access and roles, you will see this screen. And this is not doesn't mean that they're going to log into the admin portion of PowerSchool. This means that down here, they would have each school that they need access to assigned, and then they would have that user access role assigned. So when SIS and PowerSchool talk and communicate, PowerSchool Special Programs is going to go, oh, this teacher is a special education teacher. She needs to go in this security group. And that will be how her permissions are granted. If you have someone like a principal or maybe your district testing coordinator, maybe they need access to all schools. But in my district, I set them as a viewer because I wanted them to be able to see the IEP. I wanted them to be able to see that accommodations and support page, but I didn't want them to be able to do anything, so I made them a viewer only. And so down here, they would have my little school, and it would say Special Education Viewer. And then they would have the middle school, and it would say Special Education Viewer. And then they would have the high school, and it would say Special Education Viewer down here. So they would have 3 schools listed and Special Education Viewer. The next section we're going to look at is our document templates. And this would be a time when you would have to be logged in. You would not be able to see this without being an admin. And this is where we provide rights to those documents. Like when we come out with a new document, you have to come over here and give people access. If you have been in my session for the IEP at a glance, the new document that came out, you know that we had to go here and give our special education teachers the right to set them to final. So this is where you would do that. You select the document template, you click on the magnifying glass for which document, and then you would click the pencil and be able to provide which permission you want for each document. Most of these, if you click here, these document-wide privileges are going to trickle down, but let's just say you want to give them the right to do most everything, but maybe on the profile page you only want to give them view rights. So you could go here and set permissions for specific sections of the document, which most of the time we don't, but some people want to. Okay? Another thing we're going to touch on today is our audit log. This audit log keeps a record of pretty much everything that's done within special programs, okay? And it will tell you, you can filter it by user, you can filter it by type, like over here. It'll tell you whether it's a security type or whether it's a document type or connectivity, and you can see it lists me. Even when I assume that admin login, why did I do it? There it is. I'm administrating security. Okay? And basically this allows you to keep track of what's going on in your instance of special programs. And if that teacher says, but Ms. Smith, yesterday I accessed that 5 times, you could go in here and look to see, well, Ms. Smith, I'm sorry, you think you did, but according to the audit log, you've not logged in for 2 weeks. So it's a way for you to know exactly what's happening in your instance of special programs. Okay? Now, what I didn't mention, and I don't have a slide for it, but I did say we would talk about it, is creating a new security group. Sometimes there may be a need to create a new security group. Maybe you want to give a specific group access, like maybe your occupational therapist. You want to give that person access, and so you want to create a security group that is for occupational therapists or maybe for your school psychologist. I don't know what reason, but you would go here and add a security group. Now, honestly, I would probably not start from scratch, and I would copy one, and then edit it. But we could talk about that if you want to call, and I'll help you get that set up. But when you are ready to talk about changing security, or adding a new security group, these are some questions to consider, because so far these are our security groups, or this, and now I want to say this. This is based on the national model. So like right now we don't have audiological or OT speech in general, but you may want to add them. So these are questions to consider. What is that person's role? What is their purpose? Will they need to be a member of more than one security group? Will they need location or system-wide access? What documents will they need to use? All of these things need to be considered. So if you are considering removing or adding privileges, think about these questions when you're thinking about making changes. I am a firm believer that we only need to give people access to what they need, because usually if we give them too much access, people have a hard time staying in their lane. And I'm speaking from experience in my own personal self, because I do sometimes have difficulty staying in my own lane. Okay? Now, report security. This is another area we want to talk about when we're building reports. We need to also give the rights to certain groups. This is another way we would use security. On our standard reports, you would go here, reporting, standard reports, then you would select which report you're going to work with. For the example here, I used active special education, not gifted. That's the name of my report, and I wanted to make sure that I've given it to the appropriate people. Now, my list went way down here at the bottom, and I couldn't capture it all in a screenshot, but you can see that if I wanted to toggle here when I went to security, I could choose which group to give it to. Okay? Now, that's all I have for today. I am here for question and answer. If y'all want to unmute or type something in your chat box, I'll be glad to answer it. In the meantime, I want to bring your attention to some recent issues and some resolutions that we've come to. And these are just some things that we've been dealing with fairly frequently over the last couple of months. We've been dealing a lot with gold integration. One simple thing you can check is to be sure that students are enrolled in the correct class in SIS. Okay? And when they are, and they have that pre-K assessment box checked in the course section, then they should show up in gold. If you are having trouble with that, making sure that your SIS is, the things are correct in SIS or Power School issue, you need to contact Sherry or me. And then if you are sure you have that set up right, then you would contact Stephanie Bear or Kathy Wilkins, and they will help you. Another thing we've seen lately is incomplete profiles. One culprit for that is our documents sometimes are not finalized. Okay? We've had trouble recently with transfer envelopes. Those being, and honestly, I just learned this 2 weeks ago. If the enrollment history in SIS on the student's enrollment history page, if it is not complete, or if they're in provisional enrollment status, then that transfer envelope will not import correctly. So before sending a request for an envelope, when a student transfers into your district, you need to get with your SIS person if you don't have access, and if you do, check their enrollment history. If their enrollment history is not complete, then it's not going to come in correctly. So reach out to Sherry or me for clarification or help. Additionally, this is something that has just started happening as far as we know, but check, especially students who are new to your district this year, check their special education history. That is on the flyout profile. It's on the far right side. I think the third one from the bottom on the right side, it's called special education history. If that is empty, things are not going to work right in your special programs. And you'll need to contact me or Sherry and let us help you work through that. Okay? In order to fix this, for now, it's a known problem that Power School is working to resolve. In order now, when you are receiving an envelope to import into your district, make sure you assume the admin role before you import, and that will make sure that that special education history comes in correctly. Also, we're having issues. We've had some issues with the EIDA preschool tracking log. You can, if there's a problem on the EIDA preschool tracking log, it likely has to do with the preschool profile on that flyout menu. So check it and give us a call, and we will help you work through that. But do reach out to your Alabama Power School coaches, and we are here to help. Here is our contact information. These are our cell phone numbers. You can call us or text us, and we would love to help you. Also, if you have not accessed our live binders, you can find our recordings there. And I will post this recording as well as the presentation slides. And once I have documented your attendance in professional learning, I will send you an email.